guys! Hello. How are we all? It is really strange to be actually just fully live on my channel. It's been a while. Usually I'm only live for my patrons, so it's kind of fine if I turn up in my pajamas or like with 14 books that I'm reading with different bookmarks thrown in them, but it's been a while since I've just been like here live on the channel for all of you guys. So hi, how are you? If you are chatting today, then say hi in the comments so that I know that you are there. And welcome to our very first Fitz Along live show. I can't believe that we're starting this project together either. It feels very surreal to be starting a read along for this series that is going to run for so long. We're going to be doing this every 2 months. We're going to be here chatting every 2 months. It feels kind of surreal, just a little bit, just a tiny bit. Another thing just to note, guys, is that I have a really dry throat tonight, so if there are any coughing fits, I will try and mute beforehand, and I'm really sorry if you get some like strange notes from me during this. Hello, hi everybody, hi. Okay, so the only other thing to note before I start like going through your comments and chatting and stuff, I'm gonna give it a couple of minutes to let people arrive and tune in and stuff. The only thing that I will point out is, where am I going? This little banner up here. So we've got a no spoilers right now banner. We will be obviously later on. And oh, hello, I've got a cat making very strange noises next to me. Come up here. Yes, so there will be no spoilers for this portion of the chat, but when this little border, I don't know how to do this. I'm not good at this yet. That way? This way? I have no depth perception, so I don't know how to do that. There we go. When this little banner is gone, it will be time for spoilery thoughts. And for me and everybody else, just a hydration reminder, because we might be chatting for a while. Okay, let's just dive into the comments for a minute. Let people arrive, let people show up. Oh, that's so exciting! Your first time reading the books. Hi guys, hello. I wonder how many other people. That's going to be one of my first questions. But like, I wonder how many other people are like, I spot a Fitz along, I'm going to join. And they're like at various points throughout the series. Hello. I'm officially a high fantasy girly now. I'm glad that we have converted you. I'm glad that we are out here just doing the good work. First time with Robin Hobb. That's amazing. This makes me really happy, because I know that a lot of people are really like intimidated by this series, right? A lot of people look at however many books that there are in it and are just like, not for me. But I feel like this is a really easy initial. Can you see the cat? I feel like this is a really easy initial series for people to jump in with. Like, I feel like it's really accessible. Hello, guys. Hello. Hi, Silky. Hi. Oh, it's so nice to see so many of you. Oh, thanks. I do like the background. I feel like it's giving very sort of like high seas pirate or flag means death vibes. Which, hello, we're also here for that. More first time with Robin Hobb. This is so exciting. Yeah. So okay. So let's just jump in with that then, guys. Hands up in the comments if it's your first time. If it's your first time reading Robin Hobb, leave me a hands up in the comments. And if you have read any Robin Hobb beforehand, then leave me a bee emoji. Do we have a bee? Do we have a bee emoji? Leave me a bee emoji in the comments. So if you're new, give me a hands up. If you are a returning Robin Hobb veteran, give me a little bee down there in the comments. This was cutting it very fine, Gail. That was cutting it very, very fine. It is not, the cat who is making noises was not in fact Fitz. It was McNabb. Hold on, I will show you him. He is right here giving us side eye. Hi, Bubby. Hi, Bubby. Everybody on my Patreon is very, very used to McNab running around and doing strange noises and breaking things and chewing boxes and other things during sprints. Fitz will not show up here when I'm talking. He very, very rarely turns up. So if you guys are new to my channel or you didn't know, I do have a cat called Fitz. He is named after Fitz in the series. But he will not show up when I am talking. Quite often he's in this little bed that's on my desk and I will start filming a video and he does the biggest meow in my face and then leaves in a very like purposeful way, like, I can see you, I can see you. I'm very behind in the comments, as is perfectly normal. I won't be able to read all of them. Oh, it's really nice to see so many first-time readers. Been on my shelf for years, but it was unread until now. How many of you does that apply to as well? How many of you guys have had the books on your shelves for, or at least like the first book for a long time, and then just didn't start it because it was absolutely terrifying? Oh, wow. Okay, so like that is a lot of people in the first time camp. That is a lot of you guys. That is so cool. That is so cool. I'm hoping, oh, I was going to say, I'm hoping that's not because there aren't bee emojis, but actually because, oh, there's some of us that are returning to this series. So if you have read this series before, have you finished it or did you pause somewhere through? So specifically for the people like Fee and Stephanie and Nikki here, like specifically for you guys, which book did you pause on, or have you read the whole series through? That is McNab. It is McNab Ocean. He's a Patreon cat. Let's be honest. Like, he could be sponsored by my Patreon. Oh, I'm glad that you love him. I love him too. He's a shoulder cat. Unfortunately, the bed was empty all of today, so he's got himself in the bed. But normally, if I'm like, when I'm on Patreon sprints, I'm usually tucked back like this and I'm reading here, and he very usually is like lying on top of me. Oh, this is an interesting one. I wish the books had a different narrator. I feel like he sounds too old and posh. That is interesting, Rachel. Owing to this section of the no spoiler zone, I'm not going to suggest why I think that he is quite appropriate. However, I will say I read these books. So let me think. I read the first 2 trilogies without audiobooks. How far? I think probably I picked up the audiobooks around about Fool's Fate, and it was very odd for me because I was like, oh, like I'd had, you know, a Fitz voice in my head all that time, and then I went back and I listened to the audiobooks, and now I'm not gonna lie, I struggle to read the Fitz books without the audiobooks because they're just so perfect for me. But I understand why, like, audiobooks are so personal, right? I cannot stand the narrator for the Ship of Magic books. So when that one's coming up for you guys, it'll be very interesting. So when will that be? So that was like January, February, March, April, June, July, August, September. So August, September time when we're doing Ship of Magic, it'll be very interesting to see what those of you who have read via the audiobook think about that one, because I don't know about you, but whenever I listen to audiobooks that are like high fantasy, I think you get like 3 kinds of narrators. You get the very sort of like old England, like old posh Etonian like this, or you get just normal narration, or you get like a third option, which is a narrator who wants to, like, with their voice be like, everything is magical, like the Nina West moment of like magic. And I really feel like that is what Ship of Magic sounds like. Like, to me, it really does. First time reading Fool's Errand when I get to it. Okay. Beth, you made it! You're to defend Birch. So just for context, for those of you who are not on my Patreon, we have some opinions about Birch, and they are from a few different people. So this will be interesting when we get to the who's your favorite character portion. Okay, let me get. I really like the audiobook. It's hard to separate it from the love of the books. Yeah, that's fair. I thought the narrator sounded a bit like OG Evo Stewie. Oh no! Oh no! Mm-mm. No, ma'am. I bought the first trilogy not too long ago and read it all because thank you for crediting me with the fact that I made you read this. I love you all so dearly. Gotten about 65% of the audiobook a couple of years ago. Just got my hands on a physical copy. Yep, just the first book a few years ago. That's interesting. Okay, so I had the first book since 2021 and never started it. Yeah, this is a really common thing that I see with this series. I feel like it's this series and also Discworld. The two of them feel to me like a lot of people often get the first book or even get confused about where to start and then end up with multiple books and then just never do it. Has anybody read any of the books out of order? Did anybody do an oopsie and start with another one of the series because they didn't realize that? Oh, this is interesting, Stephanie. So did you purposely start with live ships, or did you just think that it was one of those series where because I suppose there is a school of thought that you can start anywhere. I personally don't think it's great. It's a great idea because I think you miss too much, and I think you missed a little bit of Robin Hobb's masterwork in there with all the things that are weaved in. But there are so many people who have said that they have started with the live ship books, which is interesting. Made it all the way because I read them for Becca's book club. Yep, got to the end of live ships. That's interesting as well. So how many of you guys are now reading this again? How many of you guys did Elderling along and then have now come back to do Fitz along? Who is emotionally devastating yourself for a second time? I agree about the narrator. That's interesting. I've only read the Fitz trilogies. I'm scared to read the second trilogy. Too intense. The second Fitz trilogy? Do you mean not like Ship of Magic, but the second Fitz trilogy? Read up to the Rain Wilds in the series. Oh, I don't know how many that counts up to. What? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, you're right. The Rain Wilds will be book 11? Did I just... No, the Rain Wilds will be book 10. I can't do maths. Why did I try and do that? Why did I try and do that? Listen to a sample of Ship of Magic and hated that narrator too. I feel like as you go on, Rachel, you may change your mind about the Fitz narrator, but also, like I say, it's perfectly legitimate if you're just like, nah, mate, not for me. Like, perfectly legitimate if they don't work for you. I had to slow down the audiobook because of the accent. Oh, 3 times speed. Alyssa, that's boss level. That's boss level. So I only recently started speeding up my audiobooks, which for an ADHD girly is often surprising for people. But for me, because I'd never sped up narration before and I'd never like attempted it or anything, I often ended up feeling like it was not chipmunk voice, but it just didn't give me like, I didn't get the same feelings if I sped up the narration. But now, your girl just finished listening to In Memoriam like a week or so ago, something like that, and I had that baby up to 2.3 speed, and I was very proud of myself. So I was very proud of myself. This was me. I'm being bullied. You gently bullied, poked with loving sticks. That's what it is. I enjoy the narrator from the start. It implies it's Fitz's memories. That's interesting. So that's a good question, actually, that you bring up there, Gail. Obviously, in the first book, we get the first person narration from Fitz, and I feel like we get in these sort of like coming of age high fantasy novels, I feel like you get a definite split down the middle of people who love the first person narration, and then people who are like, I aggressively hate this. I don't like it. Why am I only in this one person's point of view in this massive, massive world? So, who enjoyed the first person narration? Did anybody not like it? Because that is a thing that I have, like, I had discussions about in this series before, where, especially in the first book, because Fitz is tiny and then we follow him from a little boy up, it feels to me like very comfy to be in that point of view. But I know a lot of people also don't like reading from like the small kids perspective and wanted to be in an adult perspective from the start. So what are thoughts on that? I listened to the first book in 2014. That is a while ago. That is a serious while ago. Yeah, it's really hard because there is definitely, like I say, a school of thought where people are like, yeah, you can start with Ship of Magic, and I suppose, I mean, you can. It feels like a little standalone trilogy if you do that, but I feel like you are gonna miss so much, so much. Started to read the first trilogy this year. Started feels and immediately realized I was missing something. It's weird, isn't it? Because it's only up. There is a like graphic that is on Robin Hobb's website, but I don't feel like that's a thing that has existed for very long. I feel like that came out when the final trilogy came out, you know, like with the new shiny covers, and we brought out the like this is the reading order to like encourage people to pick up the like last trilogy. So I think that could be because they don't have, I mean, it says on the new editions, it says like book one of the Farseer trilogy, but it definitely doesn't say like book one of Realm of the Elderlings or anything, which is like really confusing. I didn't like the live shots because I was so in love with Fitz. Oh, I'm not a live shot fan, guys. You guys are going to have to hold my hand getting through there. But we are only on book one. It is okay. I'm so rigid about needing to read things in chronicle order. Yep. I mean, I feel like this is another one of those things that I tell people about Discworld as well. Is like, I think that is always a good plan. It is always a safe way to do it. My issue was that we didn't realize that we were listening to memories of a very old person until the end. Oh, that's interesting. Did that bother you then, Anissa? Was that like, did that annoy you knowing that knowing that you didn't find out that he was like an older person until the end of the book? Did that bug you? Did it? Yeah, because I guess if you weren't prepared for that, then you could have imagined him to be in like his 30s or something like that, telling you about stuff that happened really recently. Love the first person narration, thinks it helps you settle in. Yep. I also feel like this. I'm also in that camp. I feel like it's a nice way, it's an easy way for an author to give you like an overview of a world by giving you a novice in that world and being like, this is this and that is that. And if anybody gets that joke, I need you to tell me in the comments if anybody knows what that's a reference to. That's a very old internet reference, like this is this and that is that. But that's what I feel like Fitz very much is for in this book, where he's like pointed at things, and for a little while you get a completely ignorant perspective of that thing. I like the first person. It feels like hand holding, makes the world less overwhelming. Not your thing at all. That is also a perfectly legitimate point of view, like first person. Yep. It was cozy. Yeah. So did anybody else feel like these books are cozy? Because that is a comment that I hear a lot about this first trilogy, is that it feels very cozy. And for me, it always I mean, I could reread this first trilogy just on repeat, because for me it now just feels like coming back home, like to see characters that you haven't seen in a long time. But the first time I read these, I read them so fast that I think I missed the cozy thing first time around, because I was just like, give me the details. What is happening? I haven't read much fantasy, so this felt less overwhelming. That is a very good point that you bring up as well. That maybe is one of the reasons why this series does work for so many people coming into the genre for the first time. Don't usually, but it felt like it worked. Yeah. Writing down one story. Yeah, definitely. And it's interesting because they kind of, Robin Hobb kind of like dupes you, right? So she's given you like an epistolary novel, which is essentially written in letters. This is essentially somebody's diary entry or letters left for other people. And so it's really interesting because I feel like that's a format that often puts people off. Like, I personally obviously love it, but that's one of those formats that is really like gets some people to be like, oh god, it's diaries, or oh, I don't want to read from like such a narrow like snapshot perspective. But if you take this book apart, realistically, that's exactly what it is. It is just a diary of things that's happened, and I feel like she really snuck that in under the radar, because you feel very much like these events are happening right now, and then like you say, you get to the end of the book and you're like, oh no. Took me a while to get used to it. Yep. Yeah, definitely. As you're hearing Fitz's story from his mouth, you saw him grow up and you saw his reasoning and his thought processes over the years. Okay, so this is my like next question. My next question is, what do you think about Fitz? Because the series, so for those of you who don't know, the first trilogy is all from Fitz's point of view, and then in Ship of Magic, the second trilogy, we get a third person narration and it's multi POV. So there are a lot of characters in that whose heads we bounce around in. And that can be a bit of a rapid change from getting things only from Fitz's perspective. But another comment that I have heard a lot over the years is that when you then come back to just Fitz's point of view, it's a bit like, dude, why do you make these choices? Why do you make these choices? Yeah, the titles are very confusing. The titles are very confusing. And I think like they're clever, but they're only clever once you've read the book and you're like, oh, I understand. Do you know what I mean? I'm a character-driven reader, so I fell in love. Oh, that is so good. I love that. Right in the door, you're like, okay, I'm happy. I'm here. I'm doing it. Does a good job at developing the secondary characters, and I don't feel like you need any other character's point of view. Oh, that's interesting. So who, like, you know, who out of you guys cottoned on to the fact at the end of the book that Fitz is not young at the end of the book? Trying to keep this very, very vague for the first portion. No spoilers for the first portion, just because I want people to her. Because I know there's a few people who, like me, with the neurospiciness, struggle with deadlines and need deadlines to be smacking you right in the face. Like, you need your nose to be pressed up against the deadline before you actually do anything. So I am aware that there's a few people kicking about here who haven't managed to finish the first book in time. So hopefully this first section will give you a chance to like join in and have fun. But then we'll get into the spoiler section after it and we can give proper like hardcore opinions. I felt like from the first paragraph we knew he was old, struggling to get his thoughts down on paper. Definitely got cozy vibes, snuggled in bed in the cold listening to the audiobook. That's such a vibe. Because I have to go back to the last chapter, but 3 weeks that made me think about 10 or 15 years had passed in between leaving him at 19. I don't know what the actual math is. I haven't actually, I'm sure there is like an actual timeline out there that would probably tell you like what age he was in each of them. But I do not have it, and as a non-numbers person, I will not be attempting that. Felt like someone was at least hugging me while stabbing me in the stomach. Wow, that needs to go on a bookmark or something somewhere. I swear to God, that is just this whole series, like through and through. Literally, like hugging me and telling me it's going to be okay while twisting the knife in my back. Oh no. Um, they're cozy but heartbreaking, very nostalgic and almost cottagecore. That's definitely a thing as well that I felt right from the very beginning with this series. Is I felt so there are some series out there who shall remain nameless right now because it's not that kind of live show, but there are some series out there that want you to be nostalgic from the get-go, that create a kind of like an artificial nostalgia as you walk into the book, where you're supposed to let the characters away almost with some of the things that they do because you're like, oh well, this is nostalgic, but I'm never actually made to feel that, you never get the emotion of it. Whereas I feel like in this series you are nostalgic from like chapter 2, because you know that Fitz is going backwards in time and is telling you things afterwards, and it feels like a bit of a brain twister because you feel nostalgic for his childhood even as you're reading his childhood, I think. Yeah, with the herbs and stuff, definitely. It's diaries, but does it feel like it? Yes. It felt very cozy, but also intimate and personal. I just wanted to give Fitz a hug, seeing him grow up. I felt protective of him. That's actually the only way that Fitz would survive around me in any kind of reality. Is because I would feel sorry for him because he was growing up and making these mistakes as a kid. He makes so many so many dumb choices. He makes so many dumb choices that it's just like, babe, babe. And I think in reality, I would have a lot less tolerance for him than I do in the books. This is a good protagonist. He has reasons to be everywhere. Yes, definitely. I love this. Among the lesser known shady parts of the castle, who already feels like they want to be in, like, who wants to hang out with Mistress Hasty? Like, who wants to hang out with like Hod? Like, who wants to just hang out in Buckkeep? Because I feel like Buckkeep for me is literally, in this whole series, it's my favorite place. And I love going back to the first book and reading him walking into Buckkeep for the first time. Oh, I don't know. I don't know. I hope Daniel so many tidbits of information, things we don't understand, which is intriguing on first read. This is such a good point. I was actually just talking to Harry before I came on here, and I was like, "Are you going to join in?" Because I was listening to the audiobook, so he couldn't, and then he forgot, and he was like, "Oh yeah, maybe." It's like, "Oh, do you know? Now that I've read them all, I can go back and see all of it. Oh, that's a good idea." And I was like, "Yep, see, that's how she grabs you. That's how she keeps you reading constantly." I really liked Fitz. In the way that I desperately want him to have an adult who just loves him. Yes. This, I don't know if this necessarily is an unpopular opinion, to be honest. I feel like this is actually a pretty frequent flyer opinion for the first few Fitz books. I think there's like a solid camp of people who are with you on this one, where it's just like, you are so frustrating and you're making so many choices and you could make your life so much better for yourself if you would just quit it. But also you understand, that he is a child and that he's making choices with limited information. Okay, that's interesting, Rebecca. I have absolutely no idea numbers wise, but this that would jive with the timeline in my head. When I read it first, I love Fitz, but now I feel like he needs hard love. I love that. I feel he needs hard love now. I had the feeling of someone telling us about their life the whole time, so I didn't think he was young. This is really interesting. It's really interesting to see who sort of like grabbed that detail and who was just like absorbed in the story and missed it. I knew from the beginning it was the current age timeline because he said his earliest memory was when he was 6, but I didn't think he would be that old. That's interesting. Oh, this is interesting fan casting. I picture Brett Goldstein as Roy Kent as Birch. Okay, Amanda, I'll bite. I'm gonna let me go. Brett okay. That's a choice. As who? Right, wait a minute. Who did you say Brett Goldstein as Roy Kent? Okay, so I'm realizing who this is. I'm not a Ted Lasso girly, so don't strike me down in the comments. I could see him as a younger Bert. I could see him. That's an interesting one. Did anybody fan cast any of this? Did anybody else have any actors in their mind for any of this? I don't think. Oh, I don't think I do. I don't think I've fan cast any of this book in my head. That's so interesting. I guess it's like depends on whether you're like a visual reader or whether you actually need to like pick actors for characters, because I've heard a few people say that as well. Also, this book was fairly short compared to other fantasy, but there was so much packed in. Yeah, so this is interesting to me, okay, because we're obviously, I think the first book and City of Dragons, which is like, what will that be, 10, 11, 12, 13, like the 13th book or something in the series, are the shortest books in the series. And the Rainwilds Chronicles, the 4 books that are split up, were really only split up in that way because each of those books together would be too big a book to publish. So that then leads me to wonder what you guys are going to think when we get into some of the chunkier books later on, because who here thought that this was slow versus who really liked the pacing? Because this is a big question. That this is like a big question. That I always ask when people are reading this series for the first time. What did you think of the pacing? Was it A, completely perfect, you loved it, no notes? Was it B, too slow? Or was it C, a mixture of both? Like, where are we? Like, A, no notes, B, too slow, C, a mixture of both. Like, where are we on that one? Because I feel like the more time with these characters, the better. And as somebody who is a character reader and not necessarily a plot reader, I particularly like spending a lot of time with characters, and I would literally watch those characters just do everyday things. I don't even need a plot. If I love the characters, if I'm really sold on the characters, I don't need a plot. You don't need to give me anything additional. I will enjoy those characters literally shining shoes. I'll be quite happy with that. But I do know that that is not the case for everybody, and that if there is not like plot and action points happening, that it's difficult for some people. I can forgive his cluelessness better on the reread. I love that. Yes. Oh, I know. That just honestly, like, baby Fitz just sitting underneath tables, literally eating table scraps with the puppies and just hanging around listening to all this chat from all of these guards that he has no idea what any of it means. Thank you, Beth. You're always my wing woman. I appreciate this. I definitely had a picture in my head of how everyone looked, but I didn't pick any actors. I would have been besties with Vixen and the puppies and the horses. More than the characters. Oh, okay. So C, a mixture of both. Really liked the pacing. Pacing was perfect. Slow but well paced. Okay, really loved the pacing. Too slow. Yep, that is totally fair. I liked the pacing, and then I thought it got a little bit too rushed at the end. Yeah, I personally think that Assassin's Apprentice could easily have done with another 100 pages. I think I would have been comfortable with another 100 pages out of this book. That being said, you can maybe take, in my opinion, you can maybe take that 100 pages from Assassin's Quest. You can maybe take some of the walking. I just inhaled one of my hairs. You can maybe take the walking time out of Assassin's Quest and use it for the first book. Okay, so a mixture of both. Like the pacing. Yep. It was very slow for me. Okay, but I enjoyed it. I had to listen to it 2.5 speed. Oh, it was slow for me. Interesting. Slow, but in a good way. I read a 500-page familiar generation literary fiction is my primary genre. Do you know what? Slice of life literary fiction is the only literary fiction I will accept anymore. Like multi-generational literary fiction is the only thing that I will accept. The beginning seemed a bit long, but then it got way better. Yep, that's interesting. I didn't find it too slow at all. It was definitely slow for me, but I was surprised that it didn't bother me. I like that. I like that a lot. It's the letters, but like the pacing, that's okay. I would honestly not have remembered the letters either. I was happy to listen to the very slow first 75% on audio while I did other things, but I probably would have got 3 stars. The first act pushed it up to, a 5 for me. Okay, what did we rate it? Before I start getting into like who was your favorite character and stuff, what was everybody's overall rating for it? What did we rate it? For me, this one is always going to be a 5 stars, but I feel like that's in a very biased way, in that it's one of my favorite books of all time, and it's the start of my favorite series of all time, and I have a lot of memories like attached to it and stuff. So I feel like that's not really it's not a fair approximation, I guess, of what it would get. I guess if I was being super critical, I would give the first one 4 stars. Royal Assassin for me is my favorite book in the whole series. So prepare for me to be insufferable next time, like utterly insufferable. 5 stars. It would be higher if it existed. Some 4s. Yep. Glowing 5s. Okay. 4.5s. This is interesting. I'm not seeing. Okay. There we go. So yeah, there are a couple of people who've given it less. But for the most part, 4 and 5 stars. That's pretty amazing. I'll be killed in this chat. So okay, so this is interesting though. If you didn't like it, are you going to carry on to the next one? Because I feel like as Fitz becomes like a young adult and we follow him on, the tone does shift slightly. There's a lot less of the like straight up cozy fantasy stuff, because he's now sort of like, we're on the actually doing our duties part of being a royal assassin, as the name of the book might suggest. And so are you considering going on, or are you abandoning it? Interesting. Also, same question for you then, Liz. How do we feel? On its own, probably be 3.5 stars, but I know it'll mean more once I read more. Yeah, so you're considering this to be like an investment book. Excuse me. Oh, it would have been a 2 star. Oh, I would definitely round up to 6. Beth and I are same person, different fonts. 5 stars would be interested to see if it will be on reread. Yep. They all got Rachel out here representing for the live ship haters. I'm in there with you. Military fantasy girly, so I'm surprised I liked the fantasy and gave it 5 stars. Okay. I like this a lot. I'll continue because I anticipate that we will get more action. There definitely, yeah. There definitely is. There definitely do be more action. Okay, so for before we get into talking about plot and theories and stuff like this, because I want to give, again, people who haven't necessarily had the time to finish it a little bit more of a chance. So my next question is, who is your favorite character? And I feel like I want to say, who is your favorite character who isn't Fitz? Because we get everything from Fitz's point of view, and I feel like It's legitimate, I guess, like if Fitz is your favorite because we're seeing everything through his eyes. But I'm interested to know who's your favorite character who isn't Fitz. I can't wait to get to Liveshow and see if we agree or differ. Our Venn diagram's interesting sometimes, Beth, so we might have a different point of view on this. But what my prediction for this is that you're gonna like some of the characters that I hate in this series. And not 5-star. I like the later ones. Took me a while to get into the series, but yes, but then it's all the heart and star eyes. Yes. Well, this is mid for me. I see the potential. Implant to at least finish this trilogy. Yeah, I really encourage you guys who have not necessarily got along with the first book to just read the first trilogy. If by the end of Assassin's Quest you're fully like, nah, it's not for me, I'm out, I say give it a miss because the tone doesn't really change from there. The tone is kind of set by the time that we get to that book. But I feel like give it a little go. Give the first trilogy a go. If you didn't hate it, give the first trilogy a go because I feel like it might change your mind. I wonder if you dislike the Fitz books. You might love the Liveshow books. That's a very good question, Eleanor. That is a very good question. Genuinely. Okay, so Verity is also I'm with you. Verity is also my favorite character. I feel like Verity and Burrich very much vie for my favorite character. I love why can't I think of Patience's maid's name? It's just gone out of my head, but Patience's maid, Shade. But if I had to pick, genuinely in the first book, if I had to pick, it would be Verity. Lady Patience, this book, yes, definitely. The Fool. Yeah. How many fools are we gonna get? Chaser Verity, yes. Chaser Verity. Outside of Fitz, I would say Shade. Yep, Verity. Oh, we've definitely got a Verity fan club. I'm here for the Verity fan club, guys. We should have t-shirts made. I love this. It's not just patience, Gail. It's patience full stop. Patience. It's patience. I like that a lot. That's commitment. Like lots of people loving Patience. Can't remember their names, but the dogs. We'll talk about them more when we get into the spoiler portion. Nosy and why have all names left my head today? That's so bad. So bad. Fitz the Fool and someone in book 2. I love it, Rachel. You're gonna have to tell me later who the someone in book 2, which particular someone in book 2 it is. The Fool, yeah, a lot of Fool fans hanging around here. I mean, I'm there with you. I'm very there with you. Very in shade. Yep. I feel like I could love to regret this in the future, but Verity. Patience. I feel like this is actually a vibe in the book though, genuinely. Like I feel like everybody has a little bit of a crush on Verity. I feel like everybody's like, oh, Verity, you know, he's the guy to have. And that's why it's so alarming why by the end of the first book, like the change in Verity is so alarming. And it's so when Fitz like is scaling towards the end, like to him that moment where like he touches him and he realizes like, oh no, oh no, this is like you've gone through so much and I don't know if there's any coming back from that. Considering continuing on audio, but it's just not my thing. I felt like the characters are unlikable. I felt no attachment. Okay, that's fair. I mean, that's fair. It might just be a writing style that doesn't jive for you. That's totally fair. Dogs. Yes, just the dogs. I really like Birch, but it wasn't for the problem with him about the connection he had with animals. Lots of people find that very difficult to let go of, I think. Patience, Shade, and the Fool. That is an... Do you know what? I feel like that's a mother-made crone duo right there. That's what I think that is. That's what I think that one is. That one's like that's a choose your fighter set right there. Smithy, there we go. Smithy, Birch, and Verity. Oh no. nosy, but we see how that worked out. Oh, yeah, so much that. Yeah, we do get patience in this book, love. We do. Tie between Patience and the Fool. I feel like my interest in the Fool by fandom stuff I've seen in the orbit over the years. Oh, so that's an interesting question. Who out of you guys who are reading this for the first time have knowledge of the rest of the series? Does any, and obviously like don't tell us in the comments. I feel like I don't have to like don't tell us in the comments, but who out of you guys have remained unspoiled versus who have had spoilers for this series over the years? Because it's such a long running series, right? Like it's I can't remember when Assassin's Apprentice came out. Let's have a squizzy squiz. 1995, yeah, so it's been running for like a long time, and I feel like the longer a series runs and the more popular it is, the more chance that you're going to get spoilers for it. Although I feel, although in saying this, this is not Shadow and Bone, where I read the first book I read the first book and I mentioned it in a wrap up, and literally my inbox just absolutely flooded with spoilers. Like, oh no, but when you get to book this, you'll change your mind because, and I was like, well, now I won't, because now I won't be reading the rest of them, and they're still on my shelf. They're behind Iago there. They're still on my shelf. And we still have a cat, but he has firmly turned his back to me like, Mummy, you are loud. You are loud. This is going to be my next question after the who has remained unspoiled. The Fool, wait, no, Verity, wait, no, yes. I'm interested in Chade, would love to learn more about him. Yes, yeah. Oh, Ketrican. Oh, that's a nice like shout out in there. I feel like Ketrican is nobody's favorite by this point in the series. I like that. My mum's watching me. It says Chade or Birch. Hi to your mum, Kathy. Lacey. I love Lacey. I love Lacey. Like, if I was really genuinely doing a choose your own fighter team, Lacey would be on it. I wouldn't mess with Lacey, man. The third book was boring. Is this the third book? Is this Assassin's Quest, you mean? Fool for interest, Verity for heart. Okay, that's fair. Ketchikan's an absolute badass. The Fool's definitely up there. Yeah, it's hard once you've finished the trilogy. It's hard to kind of like go back to thinking about like who in book one or whatever did I love the most. I love it. It's just the dogs. Everybody's like, it's the dogs. It's just the dogs. Oh, this is one of my favorite moments in the whole book. It's one of my favorite moments where he just wanders. I feel like it's a really like crystallizing moment for Fitz, because I feel like he's lost so much up until that point, and he's had so much misery up until that point that he can only see the future as containing misery. He can only see the future as being like very certainly going to be a place where he is bottom of the pecking order, losing people, losing his self, losing self-respect, never being comfortable. And then he walks into the Fool's chambers, the Fool who is this like person of who's taken, what's the word I'm looking for, he's made fun of, he like a person who people makes fun of. He's seen as like so very much bottom of the pecking, it literally is as far down the pecking order as you can get. He's the king's fool. And I feel like he walks into this room where this person who seemingly has nothing and no prospects beyond being this figure of joke, and he sees how bright his life is and how bright his inner world is. And I feel like it's very much a metaphor for everybody out there who is an introvert, because you in your space, like this is my space. If you look along my shelves, you can see the things that I love. But if somebody was to just see me on the street, you know, you're not necessarily going to get any glimpse of an inner world out of that. And I think that one is just like, Amanda, yes. I mean, was anybody else in this camp? Because I've been in this camp for years. I truly and honestly feel like I struggle to read it in any other way. I struggle to read Birch and Chivalry's relationship any other way other than Birch was deeply in love with him and then he left and he ruined everything. It ruined everything. Um Poor baby Verity, he's a boss baby who needs a hug. I love that. Okay, unspoiled, and I don't want to know. Oh, definitely, we will not be sharing any spoilers. I knew and still know nothing. This is amazing. This is actually amazing that so many people are completely unspoiled for this series. I've heard of other books in the extended universe, but not spoilers. That's amazing. I retain nothing I'd heard before reading the series. One thing I will say though, guys, is if you do own further books in the series, like if you have, like, this is my Robin Hobb shelf up here with my Bracken, my Foxgull, which I feel like is a perfect addition to that shelf. But if you do own further books in this series, do not read any of the backs of any of the future ones, because there are big glaring spoilers on the backs of some of the future books, because it very much does that thing where it's like, now the X character is in this problem situation, how will X character get their way out of it? So like, don't do it. Just don't do it. Don't do it to yourself. I love this. I love that everybody has. Oh, that is so cool. Okay, so I did wonder, like, if there would be people who had managed to be this unspoiled whilst also being like hardcore fantasy readers. I only had knowledge of this book. Oh, that is so cool. I'm so glad for all of you. I didn't know it was a series until this month. Oh, I mean, that's fair enough. Yeah, if you're not in the fantasy world, then it would be easy to just be like, oh, new series. Just know that the later books cause lots of crying. I'm not gonna lie, this book caused me lots of crying. Did anybody else feel lots of crying in this first book? Patience and Ketchum were both so amazing. I accidentally looked for fan art at one point and spoiled myself for something in live ships. Okay, that's fair enough. I mean, yeah, that's fan art is a problem for me, because I, like, when I was early on in the series, I really desperately wanted all the fan art, and so I also almost, I mean, I don't think I understood the context of it at the time, and then later on when I read the thing, I was like, oh, that was what that picture was. So like, fan art's a problem for me because I immediately want to Google for it, like immediately. First time, and so I have no idea what's coming other than most people get really sad. Yeah, I mean, really sad. Really sad. Glad that YouTube decided to recommend this live when it was actually live. Oh, I'm also glad. Welcome in. We are still on the non-spoiler portion of the events. Considering how long the books have been around, the fact that I know so many people who have read this series and seen no spoilers, that's amazing. Okay. I want a side story where Lacey and the Fighting Master Hod team up. I love that so much. I love the Fool's Room except for the baby doll. I have problems with baby dolls. That's fair. That's fair. I think this would come under the spoiler territory, Rachel. I don't think we should. I don't think we should answer any of that. I literally googled did Birch like chivalry, and it was a definite no. I mean, I think yes, yeah, definitely. Definitely. I think that this is a strong vibe that I think everybody gets from these books. Um, I mean, again, bearing in mind, I knew it was the 90s, but I couldn't remember how far. And like, early 90s fantasy was not a homoerotic safe zone. We still had quite a lot of like cisgendered men living in their mum's basement who said that fantasy had to be a certain kind of way in the early 90s, and I feel like writing more of that on the page would have been difficult. got the vibe that Birch was deeply in love and also did not have the emotional intelligence to know it. Oh, I love this take. I love this take because I feel like very much by the end of the first book, by the end of Assassin's Apprentice, I feel like Birch has realized how much he almost lost on so many occasions from being stubborn and being stuck in his ways and being somebody who sees like who has been brought up very much to have pride as a virtue. So I think that that's a really interesting point of view. I love that. Yeah, don't read any of the backs of them. So very much that. I agree about Birch and love with Chivalry. Also, maybe an explanation for why Patience was so hard on Birch. That's interesting too. I personally, in my own little perfect headcanon, I have no problem with that being a poly relationship. Like, I have no problem with Birch, Chivalry, and Patience in a nice little throuple. Like, I've got no problem with that in my headcanon, but this is definitely a valid interpretation. Oh no! Oh, grabbed a second book from a different one. Oh no, that's yeah. Please try not to. I mean, this was an accident, but don't do this to yourself. Do not do this to yourself. I didn't think he was in love with Chivalry. Okay, so you just read it as like a brotherly love. Fair, not in my world, but fair. Crying did happen. Yes, sobbing happen. Nearly cried at the end. Yes. I cry. I cry in an early part in this book, um, and possibly at a point where you're not meant to be like this emotional. But there's a part in this book where Fitz and Chade are talking together, and Fitz finally feels like he's part of something, and I don't know, something in my tiny little inside place where little Leanne lives went like, ow, every time a new animal got introduced, I was worried about what would happen. Oh, that is such a legitimate point of view. I went cryjet during the first trilogy, which is a surprise for this giant crybaby. That is a surprise for me, Beth, because I would not have pegged you as not having so many people crying, so many tissues that we got through. I thought maybe Patience, Chivalry, and Birch were because of the way Birch responded when Fitz asked about Patience's feelings. Yes, this is the vibe. We want fan arts, but we don't want the spoiler. I cried so hard at the end. My boyfriend had to give me a hug. Oh, the amount of times I've walked into a room and lovely spouse Harry's kind of like looked up from the tacky talk or whatever it is that he's doing, and he's like, "Are you? Oh my god, what's happened?" And I'm like, "Is this stupid book?" That also happened with In Memoriam. A couple of bits nearly got me. I didn't sob at the end. I was so sad and so mad at myself for being emotionally invested, especially when you didn't enjoy it. Oh, especially when it just wasn't for you. Oh, I love this. Love comes in any shape and form. Yeah, he definitely super cared and is loyal at 100%. Yeah, the thruple thing could have been a thing. I would have also loved the thruple. Wait, Robin Hood fan for sure. I can't remember her name, but the person who helped that noble lady who was sassy and sewed in the background. Yeah, Patience is Patience is mate. I feel like Birch loves Chivalry, and because of his being Chivalry's man, the societal homophobia and the Duchies didn't recognise it as him being in love. Yeah, so it feels very, I guess it does feel very sort of like if this happened in our world at the time, it would have been an absolute no. And I think that's a really interesting interpretation because I definitely think that there are points where Regal is looked down on and is treated as a dandy. when actually he doesn't deserve it. And let's be honest, like, Regal doesn't deserve a lot in this life, but I don't think he deserved some of the times where he was criticized as being like foppish and only interested in certain things, because he was showing interest in other things. It's just that, no, have I become a Regal apologist? How did that happen? But he is showing interest in other things. It's just nobody's taking him seriously because of the way that he presents himself. So I think that's interesting. Anything you do with the dogs that make me cry, it's a cheat code. I think of Birch as an old-fashioned man's man. He wouldn't accept himself as loving a man. Yeah, Birch feels kind of like cowboy to me in that way. He feels very kind of like he's that very loyal sheriff's deputy in every cowboy movie that ever existed. I do not know what is happening here. Right, so that's my next question then. Robin Hobb is known, like, it is known. She is known for creating a hateful character, a character who you absolutely just cannot get on board with. You really just want to run over with a truck, or I don't know, what could we do in the world of Realm of the Elderlings that would be bad? Chuck them off the edge of the keep, like onto the rocks below. Who is your least favorite character? Who did you hate the most? Regal Apologists Unite. It's very that. It's very that. I feel like Regal is. See, I feel like I'm in this camp, right? I hate Regal because he's written as a character that I should hate. And Robin Hobb does that so well. But I feel like there's not a single character in any of Realm of the Elderlings who you're meant to hate, who's written as an awful character, who doesn't have nuance. I feel like she does that really, really well. And for me, Regal has got a terrible lot in life, man. He's got chivalry. Who lives up to chivalry? Like, who held up next to chivalry lives up to chivalry? And then, of course, like, I love Verity pieces, but then there's Verity who's just like gruff and he's a boy's boy and he wants to be out of the house constantly, just playing with his boys. And it doesn't matter whether that's war or not, but he's not interested in diplomacy and all of the other things. And then there's Regal, who actually could be very good at diplomacy, who could be very good at doing all the things that he can, but he's third in line and he's never given that opportunity. And on top of that, I feel like he's very forced, like he's very cloistered with his mum. I feel like he never really got a chance to. He's that kid who grew up with a very, very narrow viewpoint of life and got praised for it and got told that that is the way to get praise and power and stuff, and that's the way to make people you should make people like respect you and fear you. You shouldn't make people like you. And I feel like he's that kid. And so he's never given a chance to be anything other than what he is. And so although, yes, he is a hateful little shit and I want to strangle him like on so many of occasions, I'm still sitting there like, boy, you got such a crap start in life. Like, you got such a bad start. Very, very minutely small percentage of Regal's behaviour right at the start of the relationship with Chivalry and Verity that could be excused, but he ran with it too far. Yeah, that's totally fair. Hobb can write better villains than anyone I've ever. Okay, so my favourite Hobb villain doesn't come until, ironically, until the live ship books, which are not my favourite at all. But my favourite villain is in those books because, my God, she does such a good job. Such a good job. Like, honestly. Yep, so Regal's mum, also one of my favourite villains, because favourite love to hate villains, because I feel like, again, a lot of Regal's behaviour wouldn't have existed had it not been for his mum's example. Not that I'm apologising for or excusing anything that he does later, because he has so many chances to stop. He has so many chances to stop and change his mind, and he doesn't do it. Galen. The first mention of Galen, right? Regal because of the Rurisk thing. Yes. Hate Regal. He's a bully. Yep. Regal and Galen. Galen doesn't get enough hate for my liking. Yes. So very much so. Regal is horrible, but really Regal's mum. Wait, I was going to say Regal, and then someone reminded me Galen existed. Right. Regal and his mom. Oh, I love the like, Galen, like, I feel like a lot of people around the keep felt like that when Galen walked past, like, Galen. I hate Regal, but I blame his mother for it, and hate Galen. Yeah, I feel like Galen as a character is is such a villain. I feel like you're at the end of his journey, and that like his villain origin story would have been really, really interesting. You know, I feel like his villain origin story would have been really interesting to read, but we get him at the end of it. Like we're past the chrysalis stage of this. We get him as this like fully formed, hateful, completely dedicated to his point of view, completely dedicated to this cause that he has roped everybody around him into, and there's no way back for Galen. I feel like Galen is one of those villains who's gone as far as he can go. There's no way back for his character. I don't know how you could redeem him. Gonna say I sympathize with all the bad characters, but then there's Galen. Yeah, like teacher either. But like up to Chivalry. I feel like he does, but I feel like in looking up to Chivalry, he makes a lot of mistakes because he thinks, oh, that's the way Chivalry would have done this, or that's the way Chivalry would have dealt with it, or I need to hold the line, you know, I need to be the one who remembers how amazing Chivalry was, and he misses so many chances to change things. The first mention of Cobb, yes. I don't like Shrewd, but I also think his voice is like a douche. Shrewd is one of those characters who, in my personal opinion, does not get enough hate and scrutiny, because Shrewd's like, I'm doing it for the good of the kingdom, and I'm doing it because it's right, and I'm doing it because I've got hair that won't go away. I'm doing it because it's right, and because like needs must, and like these bad things have to happen. I feel like that point of view is so incredibly like echo chambery, because you can legitimately justify anything you do with that, right? Anything that you do, you can justify it by saying, oh, it's for the good of the kingdom. It's not for me. I don't benefit from it. It's for the good of the kingdom. Galen made me angry. Yep. We are talking villains, babe. We are indeed. I don't hate Burge, but he's kind of you're not alone in hating this. You're not alone in this. I hated Galen more than Regal. They're both awful, but Galen made me angry. Yes. My hate for Regal peaked in Royal Assassin. There's time. It is a very toxic family group, right? And that's one of the themes that I love the most in these books, is the continually twisting thread of family and loyalty and what you owe to somebody because you've been born into something. Because I feel like that's definitely a thing that happens to more than one character in this book. Is like, you were born into this, therefore you owe this thing. But nobody asked to be there. You know, nobody asked to be there. So teacher almost made Fitz do something very specific too. Gets a lot of hate from me because the situation he put in Fitz in genuinely triggered me. Yes. I have a strong suspicion that a lot of people found that really difficult, as like the mental health aspect of these books, which I guess is my next question, because there is a lot of very strong, very clear, very open depictions of mental health in these books, and of how much depression can lie to you, and how much depression can tell you that continuing to do the same thing that has not worked for you, or has worked for you in a dangerous circumstance which you are no longer in, how very much depression makes you think that continuing that horrible pattern will somehow keep you safe. And I feel like Fitz very much falls down that hole in this. I also really didn't like Birch. We do need to have a discussion about this, Ocean. We do need to have a discussion about this. Can't wait for the great villain. I think Becca loved her as a villain too, right? I can't tell you if it's the same person, because the reason for it is spoilers. But we will get there. We will get there. I have read everything but the last trilogy. Because I don't like to give series away. I don't like to give up on characters. I don't like it to be look at me getting all anxious. I don't like it to be the last book. And I feel like, and I have been stuck in a cycle of rereading this series for years, where I eventually get stuck in the Liveshow books, somewhere in the Liveshow books, and then I go back and I read the series from the start again, and then I get stuck in the Liveshow books. And I'm just like, I actually want to progress past it. And that was part of the reason for the read along. I persuaded so many of my patrons that they should read it, and they started reading it, and I got the bug, and then they persuaded me that I should do this. So that is why they're here. You have my patrons to thank for this. I'm not the biggest fan of Birch. He has his moments, but he's unnecessary cruel to Fitz. Okay, yeah, lols for the Birch chat. Who agrees with this? Who agrees with this, that Birch is not actually like a great person? Go back and forth with Birch. Some of the crap Fitz goes through is because Birch is basically repeating family trauma. This is why I will be a Birch apologist to the end of my days. I love him dearly. And I think he doesn't have, I think the emotional intelligence comment was so spot on, because I think he does not have the wider view of what has happened to him and what has happened to the men around him and the culture of like, you know, the magic systems in this world. I think that he does not have a wide view of that. And because he doesn't have that like level of education or anybody to help him see beyond that, he's stuck in his own emotional point of view, and what he does is end up constantly repeating cycles. Shrewd needs much scrutiny. I didn't like Galen, but I sympathize with him for a second when Verity tells us who Galen's family is. His hatred of the world makes sense. Yes, I like that, but I got over it very quick. But you're right, and I think that's it. Is like none of the Robin Hobb villains at any point in this series, are ever without a reason. Like I think anybody in some of these situations would do some of these things. Like, oh, so much pain. I'm just thinking about things that come in the future. So much pain. She's just so insidious by how Fitz looks up to him for just being noticed for the first time. This actually creeps me out a lot, and this is one of the things that I come back to again and again every time I read this book, is how small that kid was, how small and how without people he was, and how Shrewd very much kept it that way for as long as he possibly could, because in giving him it's not, because obviously Shrewd gets asked to, or petitioned to teach Fitz the things that he does, not the assassin part, but everything else that Fitz eventually gets, he gets as a result of somebody saying, why is he not doing that? Like, he should be, he's entitled to this, or like, why does he not know this by this point? And Shrewd going, oh, okay, yeah, he can have that. Because the more isolated that he keeps Fitz, the more narrow Fitz's worldview, the more every time Shrewd goes, good boy, it's everything to him. And it's so bad. It's so bad. Of course, the king wouldn't benefit for doing what's good for the kingdom. Like, no, of course not. Of course not. I can't discuss Birch until the spoiler section. I felt like Fitz probably felt about Birch. I just wanted to see his little crumbs of approval so bad. I know. I will. I promise. There's no going back now. I have read Discworld books in the Around the Disc 800 readathon. I have read Discworld books I never planned on reading again, or for the first time in some cases. As soon as it's a project, As soon as it's a project, I'm in and I can't do anything about it. When I tell you how much I was triggered by this book, oh, lovely. My sweet dog of 20 years past days before I started this book, and certain parts in the mental health rep. Yeah, that's totally fair. It's so hard. It's so hard. Yeah, bless my I say this a lot. I say bless my patrons a lot. But you can reread it again. I know, but it just doesn't work like that in my head. I don't know why it just doesn't work with that like that in my head. I'm like, I don't want to. Don't like Birch so much. It seems like he has wit-related trauma, so if that's true, I'll understand him a lot more. But poor Fitz. I think Birch pushed into a fatherly role with no notice or choice. Yeah, there's a lot of people who are very much like shoved and maneuvered into roles that they are uncomfortable with and that they aren't good at fulfilling and they aren't suited for, and who just kind of have to like pick up and make do. And I feel like Birch is definitely one of them. He only knows animals, so he doesn't. Yeah, he never imagined that. He never married, so he never imagined that he was going to have a child. Which kind of interestingly, if you go with the Birch is in my camp and he's a flaming gay. If we if we like go with that interpretation, of course he never planned on having a kid. It was never a thing that was in his his wheelhouse at all. And I guess that he imagined that when Chivalry and Patience had a kid, he would be involved. And then instead what he got was this scrap handed to him out of nowhere. And he was like, what do I do with it? It's not trained. Like, what do I do with it? Agree, it's mean when it comes to Nosy, who does that to a 6-year-old. I think Birch is such an interesting, well-written character because sometimes you want to give him a hug and sometimes you want to slap him. Yeah, I think for me it's less like slap him and more like hit him over the head with a chair, because I feel like that would be the only thing that would get through to him sometimes. I don't think Birch should ever have been left to raise Fitz alone, but he's trapped in his own trauma. Me. Yeah. The reason I was so sort for Birch because I genuinely think he's doing his best, and I'm a sucker for a man who's sincerely trying. Yes, that's caused me trouble before. Oh, preach, man, preach. If you haven't checked out Derry, you should read it before. There's a huge realm of the Eldlings fan. I've been rereading the series for the past 20 years since. Oh, that's amazing! Thank you for the recommendation. Right, wait a minute. I'm very behind in the comments, guys. Sorry. Birch wasn't my favourite character. I agree, he was one of the most interesting characters, even when you were so angry at him. Yeah, Galen is a trash bag abuser. I recently heard the term oxygen thief. And that's what I think about Galen. That's what I think about Galen. Patience coming in and demanding Fitch's education. Yes, props for Patience, right? I love Patience. And I feel like she also doesn't know what to do with him, right? I feel like she also comes in and is like, it's not trained. What do I do with it? Because realistically as well, in this setting, Patience and Chivalry wouldn't have even had like hands-on with their own child. Like if they'd had a child together, he would have had a milkmaid, he would have had nursemaids, he would have had like all these tutors and stuff. All his time would be taken up, and he would get like these little like go and see your mother and take tea moments, and then he would be off again. Realistically, in the setting that they're in, Patience and Chivalry wouldn't have had as much hands-on with Fitz as Birch is forced to have. And so when Patience just walks in and she's like, what is this? Why is it not working? Why is it not doing any of the things that I think it should do? I just think it's perfect. Like, I love it so much. Birch may be my favorite character, not in always such a good person kind of way, but he's incredibly complex, flawed, and emotionally realistic. Yeah, I agree with that. I feel like if we're going with a good Scottish phrase, he lets it hang out of his arse sometimes and he really shows himself up. But then eventually you're like, I understand why. I have so many mixed opinions on Birch. I loved and hated him at different points. Looking back at Shruti isn't really as uncaring as I thought he was, and the worse he gets in my mind, yes. Out of all of them, the only one who fits his best interest at heart was patient. She wanted him well educated and didn't care about his status. Yes, we haven't talked about Molly. I was going to keep this for the spoiler section, which I am going to start in a minute. I'm going to get to the bottom of these comments, and then I think it's time that we chatted some spoilers. There has to be so much chivalry British fic out there. I don't know. I've never looked for. Do you know, that's actually really interesting for me as well, because in any series that I really, really adore this much, I probably would have. But I feel like Robin Hobb serves so much in this series that I've never felt the need to go and look for fanfic for it. It is. It's true. It's like, what do I do with it? I don't know. Okay, the not having hidden getting fic is just convincing me more he loves chivalry. Exactly. Like, and also I think there's a lot of resentment for the fact, whether it's right or wrong, I think there's a lot of resentment harbored in Birch for the fact that Fitz isn't chivalry, because he looks like him, and there's times he acts like him, and he's headstrong like him, and he has all of these potentials, but then Birch sees him as, and he says sort of like halfway through the book as well, as I genuinely thought that you were simple sometimes, basically, because you would sit under tables and not speak and you wouldn't participate, but now I realize you were listening the whole time, in that way that very quiet children who have learned that nobody comes when they cry start becoming very good, like, observers of other people's emotions, and observers of situations and stuff. Really realistically, I think there's a lot of anger in there that when Fitz suddenly became a person and did suddenly become so chivalry, like when he actually started speaking and stuff, that he isn't chivalry, because he would rather have chivalry than have Fitz. And I think he also, it's not Fitz's fault, but if chivalry hadn't left, Birch would have had an eye on him, and so I think he genuinely believes that nothing would have happened to him. Which I think, right, I think it's time now that we get into the spoiler portion of events. So if you have not finished the book, and you do plan on finishing the book and you do not want spoilers, then please, I love you guys lots, but please leave now. And come back and watch this when you finish the book, because I would like to talk spoilers now. And specifically the first thing that so he abdicates. This is what I was going to talk about specifically. So he abdicates the throne as soon as he finds out that Fitz exists. So as soon as he finds out that he has a bastard and that he is on his way to the keep, he leaves. He abdicates. And I specifically am really interested in what people think of chivalry, both as his, because all we get from chivalry is what other people think. We never see chivalry himself. Sorry, I'm just gonna put this table up because I'm bending over and I'm hurting my back. We never see chivalry, right? We never see chivalry, and so we are only given secondhand accounts of him. We are only told what other people think about him. We are only told very much when somebody leaves or when somebody dies, and suddenly the only narrative about them is the nice narrative and the good narrative. We never get to see any of the genuinely negative traits that he must have, because he was a full person, right? He was a full person. So what do we think about chivalry? What do we think about the fact that we never see him and then he is killed? He's just, and it's such, for me, the first time I read that, it actually took the breath out of my lungs when they were told that chivalry had been killed. I genuinely had a moment of like, oh my god, like, he'll never meet his dad. He'll never meet his dad. And I don't know why, but for me, because chivalry's shadow is so omnipresent and so long in this novel, and we see it in every like reflected back to us in every surface sort of thing. It was so shocking. It was so shocking to me the first time I read that. I'm always slightly confused as to what the age difference is between Fitz, Burrich, and Patience. I don't know, to be perfectly honest, because I don't think there has ever been an official timeline given for this. I'm sure somebody, like I say, I'm sure somebody has a timeline and somebody has worked it out. I might Google this, because I've read so far, and I don't think it'll spoil me if I find it. But so if I find, I'll Google it after, and if I find a timeline, hold on, just tiny intermission so I can show you this. Hello. Oh, you were deeply asleep and I woke you up. I'm so sorry. Tiny cat intermission because he was being so cute and he was just purring to himself. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to wake you up. He's like, oh, mummy, you were just so boring. You were talking about all these rubbish things. I just went to sleep and I stayed there. I'm still curious about Fitz's birth, especially with his dad's infidelity. Poor Patience, unable to conceive, but obviously loved her husband enough to try and do right by Fitz. I think that is that's a horrible a horrible fact that constantly just I forget it and then I remember it and I forget it and I remember it, is that Patience can't have children. And as somebody who's chosen not to, but also who couldn't without a lot of medical intervention, that this is especially painful to me, because I'm like, okay, so I've chosen not to and I've kind of made my peace with it, but there is also a little part of me that's like, without getting too deep, that's like, oh my God, well, the choice was also taken away from me, so I'm kind of not okay with it. And so for Patience to then have this thrown in her face, it's so painful. I think it's because Fitz is young, we're seeing the world through his eyes, so all the adults seem very oldish, where in reality they're still fumbling their way through. Yes, definitely. Yeah, because based on the other books, he's close to Fitz, or in 10 years. Wonder if Fitz's birth mum will appear again. I need answers. Wonder if we'll find out things later in the series, Amanda. Could be very easy to blame Fitz for the loss of Chivalry, so much so, right? There's a lot of pain around the fact that no one knew who Fitz's mother was. Why wouldn't Birch know? Exactly. So he also then feels betrayed by Chivalry because he doesn't know. And like, why would Chivalry do these things? Like, this person who he had built up in his head to be blameless, faultless, totally courageous, like, why would he make this mistake? Patient struggling with Fitz 100% understandable after years of infertility. So very much this. I think it would have been really legitimate even if she hadn't, even if she had kids of her own. I think this would still be something that would be galling, but you're right, after so many years, it's so much. I think he was trying to protect his son. Yeah. Get back to her. I just wanted to mention that it always makes me uncomfortable when people are critical of Molly as a character, of her and Fitz's relationship. Okay, that is interesting. I remind those people that we see Molly through Fitz's eyes, so he is biased. Yeah, I have Molly thoughts. I do have Molly thoughts. We can get to Molly in a sec when I catch up. Thoughts about Chivalry is probably too spoilery. Yeah, so like, obviously, when I say spoilers, like, let's keep the spoilers within this book, which I know is hard when you have like forward knowledge of the series. So I'm there with you. Excuse me. There's been like occasions where I'm sitting here going, oh no, I can't say that. I can't say that. Right. So the reasons for not liking Birch, it was implied that he killed Nosy in chapter 2. That deeply upset me, even though we later find out he didn't. Claims the wit is bad, but gives Fitz no. I can't find your other comment, babe, but I'm assuming like no reason why it is bad. And I was reading it as it was happening. I was wishing Chivalry had tried to stay here and accept Fitz publicly. Wow, I don't know what just happened to me. I feel like Chivalry wanted to meet Fitz, and it breaks my heart that they never met. How different. Yes, if he'd had access to his. Because I don't remember it being anyone but his idea to abdicate. Yeah, I don't think anyone does. I don't think anyone does tell him that he has to. I think it is implied. I think it is very much implied that it was his own idea. And that he did it, again, to keep Fitz safe, but also because that would mean that nobody would be able to use Fitz against the family in general. Because he could have done so much more. Yeah, there were things he could have done, even while abdicating. There were things he could have done. Actually disliked Chivalry. His Chivalry explained away a lot of negative things. I very much feel this. Don't feel anything for Chivalry. I was just like, oh, okay, yeah, fair enough. Chivalry is an ass. He created Fitz. He has no right to leave him. Yes. I needed a flashback. Yeah, was he murdered? I needed a flashback. Yeah, I needed more in this book. Yeah, I needed more. It was really frustrating to not get so many answers in this first book. It's implied that patient forced his hand leaving just as she doesn't want to see Fitz. Yeah, I definitely felt that in the background. Like, but I don't know whether I would say it was implied so much as patients just kind of got blamed for it. And I don't think it was patients. I don't feel like it came from patients. I feel like it came from Chivalry. Because I feel like even with all of the years of infertility, even with all of that, I still feel like she'd be curious, because I would certainly be curious. If I was in her position, even though it would absolutely destroy me, I would have to see him. I would have to see him. I would have to see what it was like. I would have to meet him. So, like, I feel like that's a thing that doesn't get discussed as much. The way Fitz was Chivalry is like the most mythically perfect person. Yeah. Fitz was told about it too, like, everyone knows he's a bastard, but also never thinks about what it actually means. Yes, so much so I made that scene where Regal just blurts it out. Yeah, this moment where you're just like, that is a child, sir. That is a child. And I know that this is a fantasy setting, and so technically, because of the time in this world, the infant death was probably very high, which also means that children were really not as valued in a lot of cases as they could have been, and certainly not to certain people, because certain kids don't make it through infancy, like that kind of stuff. So yes, I know that the concept of childhood might not be as much of a valued thing in this world. However, that is a child, sir. Like, that is a child, and you just said that to him in a horrible way, and then just abandoned him with it. And the fact that Verity was like, it was the moment where Verity was like, oh shit, what do I do? Like, you just left me with that one, and now you've rode off into the sunset, and now I don't do feelings. Like, what do I do? Shocked me the more I read, because the more I was convinced there was some political machinations behind the scenes. I just don't know if he fell into the trap or walked into it. So it broke me when Chivalry died, knowing Fitz would never meet him. It's horrendous. The events of Fitz's birth are a bit fuzzy. Very much this. I mean, I can see why he doesn't want to adopt him and abdicate. Like, I can see why he doesn't want to do that, because he has patience. And I think that would be a horrible thing to ask her to take on. But he could have made sure that Fitz was cared for in a different way. The whole, like, oh, he felt like he was safe in the keep thing, like, that's the narrative everybody goes with, where it's like, oh, but he thought he would be safe in the keep, so, like, that's the best place for him. Sure, bub, sure. I have a lot of compassion for patients. Yep, she couldn't fulfill the one job she was expected to, and her husband wasn't faithful. Yep, that is blatantly, like, just without any bells or whistles. That's it. Into, like, she had one job, and she was valueless without it. If Chivalry had acknowledged Fitz, it would have made him more of a target for Riedel. It seems so sad that they wouldn't have met. Yes. Patience breaking down saying Fitz should really have been hers. That's awful. So much. But Patience is trying, even though she's grieving. Yep. Yep. Wasn't unfaithful. Fitz was conceived before his marriage. Was he? Or was it when Chivalry was out on campaign? I don't remember. I know that there is a detail somewhere in there about when Patience and Chivalry got married, but I don't I think he, like, in my head anyway, and in any of the readings that any of the times I've read this book, I've always taken it as he was out on campaign and it was assumed that he was a lonely soldier out on campaign. I like Patience if she'd handled things differently. I feel like her and Fitz could have been really close. I also think that Fitz doesn't necessarily have the capacity to be close to anybody because he's very much like, and take this as I mean this exactly the way that it sounds. When you have a puppy and you don't socialize it, that puppy becomes very scared, very skittish, very reticent. It doesn't learn how to play. It doesn't learn how to share. It doesn't learn how to empathize with other dogs and be able to understand when it's too far versus not enough. And I feel like that's what happened to Fitz. I feel like he wasn't brought up he wasn't taught empathy, compassion. He wasn't taught to outreach, but he was never in a safe enough place to do that anyway. So very much like an unsocialized puppy, that's exactly how he behaved. And I think that the problem is Patience met him when she did, and in the way that she met him, which was great because it changed his life. Like, Patience changes Fitz's life, but I also feel like she didn't meet him when he was a person yet. And if she'd met him when he was a person, things would have been really different. Thank you for joining, lovely. And I had time believing that Birch would kill an animal for no good reason. I was glad to be proven right. Yet the whole Patience situation hit me hard. Yes. Even if Chivalry had just tried to take Fitz with him, I probably would have had more sympathy for him. Yes. I felt bad for Chivalry because he was Fitz's dad, but it didn't feel like I got a lot about who Chivalry himself was. Yes. Lacey mentioned that Patience wanted to see Fitz after the initial shock. Yeah, that's a very good point. I forgot about that as well. Because I think that, you know, at the end of the day, if you are somebody who does struggle with infertility and you discover that there's a baby that needs loving, there is a little part of you that's like, but she wasn't given the choice, which also makes me want to punch people. I think that British does have a strong reason against it. It's just that we're in Fitz's head and he doesn't understand. Yeah. And also, there is implication in there that Birch understands the wit in a more practical way because he's able to shield against Fitz and he's able to tell on some occasions when Fitz is doing things. And there is a point in that where he's like, oh, it's because, you know, Chivalry taught me like to do this and I was literally Chivalry's man, and he we know Queen, go off, but like I was literally Chivalry's man and that he took energy from me when he needed it. Yeah, that's your story and you're sticking to it, bub. That's your story, you're sticking to it. Patiently said and does her best by Fitz now. She definitely would have done her best at the start. Yes. I think Birch has a connection to the wit. He either has it or something because he makes a concept about acting on it. Regal clearly sees Fitz as a threat for the throne. Or the shouting at the book. Regal is frequent in my house. Yeah, there's a lot of sweary Regal moments in this as to understand that it's totally what would have happened in old times. It was hard to watch everyone treat Fitz as though it was his fault. We want chivalry, not you, and you must pay for it. Yeah, and he never grew up in any way, even with Birch, he never grew up with anybody actually passionately wanting him. And everybody should have that from one person in their life. That was so sad. Grew up in the keep he knew full well it was safe there for Fitz. Yeah, but how safe? Really, he knew full well maybe it wasn't safe there. And that's why he should have maybe found somewhere else for Fitz to be, I think. I low-key hated Chivalry because he left his child totally unprotected. People kept saying he was keeping distant for protection, but I didn't buy it. Yep. Okay, cool. Okay. Can somebody tell me like where that detail is in the book? Because I don't think it did say it was for their marriage yet. Like, I don't... What happens on campaign stays on campaign. I hadn't picked that up in any of the times I read it. That's interesting, but I think that's going to be something that like through these discussions happens as well. There's going to be stuff in these books that I haven't noticed either that we only discover when we're actually chatting about it. He was out on campaign before he met Patience. Okay. Fitz loves his relationship. Okay, so yeah. Right. What's our thoughts on Molly then? This is my next big question. What is our thoughts on Molly? Because Molly's a very controversial figure. Like a very, very controversial figure. Lots of people don't like Molly. Lots of people are like, Molly's awful, she's a wet blanket, and I will admit that in one of my first readings of this book, maybe my first, I can't remember, I was young when I first read this book, right? So I wasn't a person either. But like in one of my very first readings of this book, I was like, oh my God, Molly is so annoying. She's so annoying. And I think as the knowledge of some, like with further knowledge in this series, I forgive past me for this. But in this book, I feel rotten for Molly. I feel rotten for Molly. She has got such a difficult lot, and she has so few choices. And Fitz never presents her. Hello, just got lion roared at. Fitz never ever presents her with a better prospect. He never actually says anything out loud. He's not taught to actually verbalize his feelings. And also, like, I don't necessarily, I think he was a bit too young to like understand what was going on. But again, he wasn't brought up with this is how it works, and this is what happens when you date somebody or like when you're courting somebody. He wasn't brought up with that. And so he does have that thing where he doesn't tell Molly and it's too late, and then he kind of blames it on Molly, and I'm like, no, you don't say it out loud, you don't get to complain about it. -1 for fleeing in the face of his son, +1 for patience. Keeping like the chivalry scorecard. Oh yes, not even being given a name. Oh, it's a baby. Like it's a baby. Yeah, it wasn't safe. Yeah, I got it. We got there, Nikki. Molly's been dealt a very rough hand and is doing her best. I feel bad for Molly. Yeah, I really wish her secureness and happiness, but I don't actually. This is interesting, right? Because I don't really like Molly very much as a person either. Like as a character, Molly doesn't appeal to me in any way. But I also kind of like, I give her compassion for the situation that she's in. Like, I don't like her. You don't have to like everybody in the world, but I also don't hate her. And a lot of people really hate Molly. I didn't have strong feelings about Molly. She tests to see if Fitz is interested and it doesn't go anywhere, so she moves on. Yeah, which is so legitimate. I feel so bad for Molly because her dad is so abusive. It's really hard for me actually to looking back on that, and I guess I didn't really identify that at the time, but as like a child who frequently came from an unsafe emotional situation, looking back on the way that she manages her dad's anger, and that when she thinks that her dad is dying, she freaks out, not just because she's losing everything in life, but because she actually loves her dad. That was horrific. That was genuinely horrific. Also, I don't really feel like I know her because we only see her through Fitz. Yes, she deserves a happy life. She does. I don't see anything wrong with Molly. I was just annoyed that there was a love interest. That's also fair because he's very young. Like he's very, very young, and I'm like, I don't think I needed Molly in this book. You know, I understand why she's there, and like again for book 2, like I understand why she's there and stuff, but like I didn't feel like I needed Molly. Like I would have been happy without Fitz having a love interest in this book because I feel like he's got enough going on in his life. She deserves absolutely zero of what she's been dealt. Yeah, I don't love Molly, but at the same time, I don't hate her. Yeah, especially knowing we only see her through Fitz's perspective. I think that is a really important thing, like Nikki, to think about, like in future in these books as well, as like all of these people we're only seeing through a very, very limited point of view. And I think that's really evident in the Fool because there are so many times where Fitz is just like, I have compassion for the Fool, and he thinks he really thinks he's doing this like big act of service, right, where he's talking to the Fool and he's spending time with him and he's letting the Fool do his little like Fitz faces at him, and you know, like he really genuinely thinks he's one of the Fool's only friends, and he has this big like narrative in his head about how he's this like really good person. And then he discovers that the fool is like 70 times as smart as he is, has been clued up on stuff well before Fitz walked into the picture, has this huge like inner life that Fitz doesn't understand and like wasn't a part of, and clearly that Fitz isn't the only person he cares about or has conversations with or like interacts with. And when he starts asking people like, does the fool talk to you? I'm like, boo, you're sad. You're upset that your bestie talks to other people because you thought he was just yours. And I feel like that's like a really statement piece of how like Fitz's point of view is so narrow. Like it's so narrow. I find Molly to be complicated, a little soft spot in my heart for her. Yeah, I like Molly. Fitz is the moron in that relationship. It's the worst life. She tries hard to be closer to. Yeah, I don't think he's capable. I really don't think he's capable at this point. I think Fitz needs Molly in his life, or a Molly. You know, it doesn't necessarily have to be Molly, but she doesn't judge Fitz when she meets him. She does her best to build herself a life, and I also love what she does. Like, I love Molly's profession. I think that's amazing. I was very happy with her Herbie candles. You had no clue people didn't like Molly. I just thought she was downright an abused child who becomes a strong woman. Yeah, loads of people hate Molly. A basic girl for her age. She engaged with Fitz when they were young and accepted him. Yeah. So, like, yeah, I like Molly, but I didn't need her as a love interest. Very that. Boring first read, but I love her this time around. If it's just, Fitz clings on to people without letting them in. Oh, Eleanor, that sentence broke my freaking heart. Oh, that's so true. The way that he's so desperate for connection and he just like limpets onto people, but he actually can't allow them to get in any further. I really liked how Patience took Molly under. Patience is just banging. We love Patience. So I need a Patience fan club t-shirt also. Yes, Fitz was definitely being a typical oblivious teen boy. Very that. Fitz isn't ready for a relationship. Yes, it's perfectly okay. She chose somebody else. I think Fitz's POV impacts on how we see Molly a lot. He doesn't recognise the abuse as abnormal. Exactly, because he's so heavily neglected. So this, Nomi, so this. Oh, very this. Like, he doesn't have an actual healthy level of an idea of what is acceptable, you know? He doesn't have an idea of like what is okay and what's not, and what is expecting too much from somebody as well. Like, he doesn't have an idea about that either. Molly's doing the best that she can with what she's got and the opportunity she's been given. Like, Fitz fucked up, yes. Fitz was 14 when Molly decides to someone. I don't think it was ever meant to happen. Yes. I'm happy for Molly to have her buffs even. Yes. Roughly how old was Fitz supposed to be in the story, not the old Fitz? I couldn't figure out how much time had passed in the books. I got the impression that Fitz was in his like late teens by the end of the books. I might be wrong. And again, because like I will see if I can find for us next time an actual timeline. And if I do find an actual timeline, I will post it on my channel so that you guys can see it. But yeah. That's the impression that I got, was that he was late teens by the end of the first book. Fitz doesn't understand romance either. He's clueless. The age difference they had was enough for them to be on a different page. Yep. Didn't expect people having such strong feelings towards Molly. Yeah. There's a big Molly hate club out there, man. There's a big Molly hate club. She's 2 years older, an awful situation. Yep, she moved on as best she could. And realistically, given the circumstances of the time, if you just take Fitz out of the situation, I think Molly did amazingly to just be alive. Molly was a caretaker and a business owner as a child. Yes, very that. I had forgotten we got Molly in the first book. I hate you all day fantasy narrative that you have to be with your first love is daft. It really is daft. Oh, there's a lot of things about like that coming of age kind of fantasy. Like, I think I blame Tolkien. I blame Tolkien for a lot of stuff. Molly's a normal person, whereas everyone else is somehow involved with the royalty and power positions. Yes. Oh, and do you know what? That's one of the things that I love the most about live ships. I don't love a lot of things about live ships, but that's one of the things that I love the most, is that we get to see an outside glimpse. We get to see what it looks like when you're not actually in the power position of all of these. I hate romance in books, so I got annoyed whenever Molly appears, but I feel sorry for her. That's legitimate. Yes, sometimes months at a time. And also she knew that he worked at the keep, right? But she didn't know very much else about him from the narrative that we're given about their situation. Like, she didn't really know very much else about him. So, like, Phil is smarter than anyone else in the whole series. Yes. Phil and Shredd's relationship is very creepy, and almost like how Shred how he gains the loyalty of Fitz is reflected with the Phil. Shred, like, collecting people. Oh, that is so sharply observed. Very much this. Shrew definitely likes to just, I feel like he puts people in the right situation so that they're distracted from the fact that he's tying puppet strings on their hands, and they're just like, what's happening? He's like, oh, nothing, look the other way, while he's like, meh. Oops, that was, sorry, I can't remember the passage from the book. The elderly Wiki states that Chivalry married Patience after his affair with a mountain woman, for that's worth. Okay. I have a friend that writes as a fictional character is going to therapy. Everyone in this book needs it. Oh my god, I love that so much. Literally everyone needs it. Literally everyone needs it. Oh, I find the Phil incredibly creepy. Even after having seen the room, I imagine it has to do with the court politics they're immersed in. This is interesting. Who else finds the Phil creepy? What does everybody think of the Phil? Is anybody invested in the Phil at this point? Also, as a question, who out of you guys read via, like, most of you seem to have read via audio or just the, like, standard edition. Have any of you guys seen the illustrations in the illustrated edition? Do I have to pull these out to show you? Because I feel like the illustrations in, like, the illustrated edition really do, they are almost perfectly the characters for me, including the Fool. And I haven't enjoyed a lot of the fan art I've seen of the Fool. Oh, he's 15. Okay, so 15 or 16, not older teens. Oh, okay, yeah. I don't think there's one character in this book that has emotional maturity or a healthy upbringing. Maybe Patience. They're all broken people trying to guide each other. Oh, I feel like as well in this little world of Fitz that all of these people are different points on his compass, and he's pulled towards, like, all of these points at different bits of the book. Like, he keeps getting dragged back and forth, and he never has a chance to find who he is, but also they never really come together. They're all of these opposite poles, and they never really talk to each other either. And I feel like that would have solved a lot of issues in this, as if more people had talked about their feelings. I get the impression that the Phil is first and foremost a survivor. I could not possibly comment. I don't think Molly does, because I don't think Fitz ever tells her in the first book who he actually is. He very much lets her believe that he works for the scribe, and anytime that he comes in to her shop, if, like, for errands and stuff, he very much makes it like, I've got a list of things I need to get, like, I've been sent here. So I don't think that she knows anything about who he actually is. We're led to believe that he met his mother once, he just didn't know, right? As in Fitz met his mum once, Megan? Is that what you meant? I also found the Phil creepy in book 1, but I finished book 3 and I think he's developed well. The Phil is suspicious. Okay, interesting. The Phil is creepy when they're on, but there's so much more. I like that when they're being the Phil. Do you know, it's interesting to me because I feel like the Phil in this book has 3 different modes. There is that, like, court gesture thing, but I feel like always that court jester version of the Fool, it feels very much like he's laughing at you. And then there is this other mode where they are angry and they are like they have a purpose, they have a mission, and they are trying to get somebody to pay attention to the fact that they're making stupid choices. And then there's this other side of them that Fitz gets little glimpses of, like going into their room and stuff, and when they bring Fitz food and when they look after Fitz's dog, and I'm just like, oh, so much. Phil is very attractive. Oh, interesting. I wouldn't have gone with attractive. I wouldn't have necessarily said attractive. But I definitely think that it is very close to the way that. Now I'm gonna have to flick through until I find them. Hold on. I'm so sorry that I've got a sniffy, guys. Between the dry throat and the sniffs, I'm not. Oh well, there's Patience. Hold on, I just fell on Patience there. Oh, I fell on Patience. Would that, but I could. So there's Patience. Oops, I'm trying to find a good balance of light and not light. I really love that illustration. I will find. Hold on, I will find the Fool, and then I will find Birch because. Oh, there we go. So that is the. Oh, why am I going more wonky? There we go. That is the illustration of the Fool. And then I really feel like Birch is dead on what I had in my head. Go. It's Birch and a baby Fitz. Oh, baby Fitz. I think there was one other illustration in here that I wanted to show you guys if you hadn't seen this. Hold on, I can't remember what it is now. Let me just flick through. I was sure there was another one in here that I wanted to show you guys. Oh. Oh. So painful. That comes on that comes next to the passage. Chade held me and rocked me as if I were a much younger child. Even in the darkness, I knew those bony arms and the herb and dust smell of him. Disbelieving, I clung to him and cried until I was hoarse and my mouth so dry that no sound would come at all. You were right, he said into my hair quietly, calmingly. You were right, I was asking you to do something wrong, and you were right to refuse it. You won't be tested that way again, not by me. And when I was finally still, he left me for a time and then brought back to me a drink, lukewarm and almost tasteless, but not water. Destroyed. I don't find the Fool creepy, but I'm super invested in his character. I can't wait to find out more. The illustrated editions are beautiful, although it does peeve me off that they brought them out with this rounded spine, sort of like shiny matte cover, and then by the third one they changed it to a canvas cover with a rounded spine, and now for the reprints they all have canvas covers, but the first two have flat spines and the last one has a rounded spine, so there is no actual one set that matches off these books. I also have those books up there, are the foiled 10th edition set. I don't know, can't remember what edition set. Those are beautiful as well, but they don't have illustrations in them. Those are just like foiled canvas. I'll show you next time. I'll have them here for you next time. The Fool is fascinating and awesome. I don't think I love the Fool in book one, but my opinion has strongly changed. Feels a bit creepy. Yeah, the illustrations do work for me. It's always hit or miss, right, when you get official illustrations for a book where you're like, mental image of the Fool from fandom stuff, but I hated the way the audio narrator did their voice. Oh yeah, I guess it is. It's quite a strong choice. Shall we put it that way? It's quite a strong choice. I think I found him intriguing in book one, and that's as far as it went. I have the ebook, which definitely didn't do any illustrations justice. No, Phil reminds me of Wit from Brandon Sanderson's Cosme, who's my favourite character, so I find it very interesting and mysterious. Do you know what? I think that Brandon Sanderson is a big fan of, which I love about them. Like, he's a big fan of some of the massive series, so that might be an intentional reference even, you know. I really disliked the narrator's voice for the Phil in the audiobook. Oh, okay, I'd never really noticed. Maybe I should slow it down next time. Fascinated by the Phil. Can't make it with gender, age, or race. I wonder if he's completely human. Oh, well, that's a good question, guys. So does anybody have, because I think we're like rounding out the 2-hour mark here, so I think what I think we should do is talk about, does anybody have any predictions? Like, does anybody have any predictions for what they think is going to happen in the future? Obviously, no spoilers if you have read ahead. And is there anything that anybody wanted to talk about that I haven't already brought? Excuse me, wow, what is going on with me? Anything anybody wanted to bring up that I haven't already talked about? Do you think characters all live up to their names? Shrewd as shrewd. I think, genuinely, Regal does a pretty good job of living up to his name. I think he does a really good job of it, and I definitely think, I mean, I'm biased, but I definitely think that Verity does a good job of standing up to his name, almost to the point of fault, like to the point where he recognizes that he's being an idiot sometimes. Chivalry, well, we've covered that in quite a lot of detail. Patience, not so patient. Patience, not so patient. I'm invested in the film, but I think they really try to help us. But I also think they work for some other power, and I can't trust their agenda. Thought Fitz was 16 at the end of it, maybe 18. That was what I thought as well, but apparently not. But again, the timeline thing is a thing that I will Google. I have the folio editions, and I don't like the way the characters are portrayed. This is actually what put me off buying the folio editions. I mean, they are also £1,000 million. Like, they are so expensive. But that is another reason why I didn't pick up the folio editions, because they're just not the characters that are in my head. The only well-adjusted people in this book are for Jan-Feb. So accurate. So accurate. Didn't creep me out if anyone nice for how everyone else just made fun of him all the time. Yeah, the people from Jan-Feb are wonderful. Like, I really genuinely think that is a spectacular place to live. Right, where did I get to? So there's not a lot of magic in these books, but there's something about the Phil that's unsettling and not of our world. We just don't have enough information. Phil getting angry and upset did something to me that felt very personal. Yeah. I think a lot of times when the Phil has angry moments, I am like, and I don't want to dwell on it too much, because whatever I say will be spoilers, but there are some future moments with the Phil where I'm just like, no. Right, I'm sorry guys, I'm behind. I love the picture of the birch. They're also attractive in the pictures. The illustration of Chain and Fitz. Oh, they're beautiful, right? They are beautiful. Oh, pain is so much pain. Which one did you miss, Gabby? I can show you it again. Chain and Fitz, I know. Right, let me try and catch up. Personally, didn't come up with it. I don't either, right? I'm not a theories person. I want the books to I want them to be a surprise for me. I don't like, the same with thrillers or mysteries. I don't go into them trying to work out what's going to happen. But there are some things in these books where Robin Hobb leaves. Hi, baby. Where Robin Hobb leaves you such like a strong, like, oh look, it's a clue, and I'm like, you cannot. Yeah. Yes, mouth. I hated how Galen pushed so hard. Skillet isn't for bastards, even though he is. Oh, so much so. Also, mouth sealed. Yes. Charlie Damien, whenever I try and come up with a theory. Joining in with the zipping, but I don't think I particularly had any theories after book one. Okay, that's totally fair. Oh, you're welcome. It has been so much fun. I've been super looking forward to this, and I'm super looking forward to the next one as well. Nosy saving Fitz made me cry, and then Birch realised my Fitz stopped talking to him. I feel like we're now just at the point in our discussions where everything's just said with a why. Why did it happen? It's not fair. You're so welcome. Oh my god, McNabb just jumped down and started eating food there, but he started chomping it so loudly I genuinely had to check if it was one of the dogs eating the cat food. I was like, what is happening? I had a theory that the Phil knew much more than he was letting on about certain things, but I think I was led that way by a Fitz memory. Also, it's interesting because as we go further into this series, Fitz does, because obviously he is writing in the future about the past, there are some times where he is able to be like, I didn't see this when it was happening, or this didn't, like, this for me was surprising because, and I love that because it's like you're getting flashbacks in the moment while you're actually getting the information, and you get best of both worlds, because I feel like Robin Hobb could have done this with dual timelines as well, right? So she could have done Fitz in the present and gone back to the past and whatever, and I don't think you would have got as much intricacy as you get out of this series. And it's so interesting. Like, it's so interesting. Oh, I'm glad. I'm so glad. Oh, it has been so much fun, guys. Be very interested to see what role Keshkin will play in the future. Can't say anything, but yes, Sarah, very much this. Not a theories person, but I do think all the Philistines feel like you'll understand this. Yeah, like, definitely, like, everything has, like, ellipses at the end, like, da da da. Are you, what were you doing? Why are you doing that? He's like, Mummy, you're finished now, so you should play with me now. So rude. So very, very rude. When to read this, I tried to start it in one of my vlogs, but I wasn't in the right headspace to read it. I decided to wait until I was more in the mood for it. Hey, you have got 2 months, and I think we're still, if there's anybody who has talked to you, like, if any of you guys have said, oh, I'm doing this readathon, and somebody's gone, oh, I would love to do, there's still so much time. Please encourage anybody who's swithering about it. There's still so much time, because we're reading one book every 2 months. I think the timeline of this is very gentle, right? Like, even for the monster books, I think the longest book's like 900 pages, right? So, like, that's what does that work out to? Like $450 a month, like something like that. That's not a lot in, like, the grand scheme of things. So if you're still on the fence about it, catch up, rewatch the live show, and be ready for book 2. That's what I say. Oh, I'm so glad that you guys enjoyed it. Oh, I loved hanging out with you too, guys. I don't want to wait 2 months for the next book. I'm not going to lie. I had to physically stop myself from not picking up Royal Assassin because it's my favourite. It's my favourite. Like, it's my absolute favourite. And I had to physically restrain myself from doing it. So, like, the things I do for you guys, I was so sad. But hey, as soon as March hits, it's going to be mine. You guys haven't seen it yet, but in my March TBR, I'm trying to make March my best reading month ever, like, on record ever. So I'm trying to read more than 4,000 pages, I think, and read more than 14 books. And Royal Assassin nets me like 680 pages or something. So I'm very excited for it. And I'm getting to read it, like, the first week in March is my birthday. So I'm getting to read it over my birthday. Like, all of the best things are happening. All of the best things are happening. Thank you guys so much for being so awesome. I was genuinely very nervous about this because it's the first time I've hosted a read along just on my own. So I was genuinely really nervous about this live show. So thank you so, so much for being amazing and chatting so much about these books and being so enthusiastic about it. You guys are just, you're very special eggs. You're very good eggs. I will see you again really, really soon. If obviously I don't sprint a lot on my channel anymore. Most of my sprints are on Patreon. So if you do want sprints or more hangouts that very much have this energy, we sprint every Wednesday on my Patreon and at multiple other times in the month. And we have a 48-hour readathon in March. So it would be a good time to come visit us if you would like a chat and you are struggling to wait for like 2 months time. Yeah, so have amazing days or amazing evenings wherever you are. Thank you so, so much for being here. Like, you've made my little heart happy. I cannot wait to see what you think of book 2, and I will see you in 2 months, guys. Bye.